bustling heart of Africa is centered around the Congo Basin, the home of the Congo rainforests. The waterways of the basin coalesce into the massive Congo River, which curls through the center of the basin and feeds the dense vegetation of the dark, steamy jungles. The source water of the Congo, which exists at the end of the river's longest tributary, exists in the highlands of the East African Rift. These highlands compose a massive continental rift from dividing tectonic plates, and it reaches down along the eastern edge of the continent. These highlands and rifts all make up the eastern border of the Congo Basin. They're rugged landscapes with steep mountain valleys and inland lakes like Lake Victoria, Lake Malawi, and Lake Tanganyika, which feed water into the Congo. To the north of the Congo Basin, there's the humid, subtropical Sudanian savanna, which dries up as it goes further north into the Sahel, and then eventually the Sahara. To the south of the Congo Basin, there are the tropical forests and highlands of Angola and Zambia. The Atlantic Ocean lies to the east of the Congo Basin, accessible through the lowland valley gateway bordered to the north and south by higher altitude patches of savanna in Angola, the Republic of Congo, and Gabon. These create a kind of mountainous gateway from the central heart of the Congo to the coast. In essence, the Congo Basin is an enormous, roughly circular depression in the heart of the African landmass, surrounded on all sides by rugged highland terrain. To reach the ocean, the Congo River first has to snake through the corridor of steep cliffs, coming downhill from the southeastern corner of the basin. It flows for more than 4,300 kilometers across the Congo Basin, feeding a massively complex series of forests. Where it discharges into the ocean, the Congo carries an average of 41,000 cubic meters of water per second. It's an amazing river for many reasons. Perhaps one of the more interesting reasons is the absolutely mind-blowing species diversity that lives within its flowing currents. Consider that most rivers that have a steady fish population usually have maybe less than a dozen different species of fish. A lot of rivers have maybe 2 dozen or 3 dozen, but generally it's below 50 species of fish per river. It's relatively low. If you compare it to the larger rivers in the world, like the Nile, which has 130 species, it doesn't really compare. That's more than 10 dozen. You can also look at other large rivers, like the Niger River, which has 210 species of fish. The Congo River, by comparison to all of these, has close to 700 species of fish. So make no mistake about it, the Congo River is by far and away the most biodiverse river in the world. There are numerous species of killifish, which act as secondary consumers in the ecosystem. They're small fish, and they eat primary consumers like insects, worms, and small crustaceans. Some of the African Congo killifish include the Aphyosemion genus, the Lacustrocola genus, and the Fundulopanchax genus. All of these fish are small. They feed off of the smaller critters in the river waters around them, the very small krill and crustaceans and other tiny things like that. Their biomass ends up filling the bellies of the tertiary consumers, the larger fish who feed off of the killifish. Of these slightly larger fish, which include species of lobe-finned lungfish and species of long-bodied bashir, some of the more numerous are from the cichlids family, which come in a variety of bright tropical colors. They come in a wide variety of sizes and shapes, too, with some being just 1 inch long, and others being almost a meter long. Genuses within the cichlids family include the Teleocichla, which are small fish with long, tubular bodies. There's the Altolamprologus fish of Lake Tanganyika, which are flat-bodied, much taller than they are wide. The most common type of fish in the Congo are the Mormyridea, the elephant fish, which includes about 200 species that are defined by their elephant-like qualities. For a fish, they have a relatively large cerebellum and a high degree of intelligence. Most elephant-like of all is the large, snout-like mouthparts on many species of these fish. They feed off of microorganisms in muddy, dirty water, and this has caused them to evolve an extended, narrowed lip structure, and it looks a lot like an elephant's trunk, or like a weird tube. The elephant fish pushes its trunk tube mouthparts through the mud, trying to find and slurp up any small crabs or microorganisms that it finds. A cool detail about these fish is that because they live in muddy water, they often have a very limited visual range. This has pressured them to evolve an ability to non-visually detect movement and other stuff around them. This ability comes in the form of an electric field, which they produce with a specialized organ, and which they detect with specialized receptors in their skin. This gives them an acute sense of motion in their proximity, even in the muddy water of the Congo, where they can't see more than a few inches in front of them. These fish live in ecological balance with their environment. When the rainy season comes and drags on, the water level of the Congo River and all of its tributaries begins to rise. This excess water will saturate ordinarily dry soil, and it will fuel plant growth. And furthermore, it creates pools of standing water that many insects and other arthropods will use to lay their eggs and reproduce. The onset of the rainy season leads to a surge in the population of arthropods, and this, in turn, feeds the fish. The very beginning of the rainy season is when the fish typically breed, so that their offspring are out of the eggs and swimming around in water that just happens to be crawling with food. They time it right, and this timing optimizes the health and the vitality and the chances for survival of their offspring. One of the largest fish in the Congo is the Hydrocynus goliath, also known as the mbenga or the Goliath tigerfish. It comes out of Lake Tanganyika into the Congo, where it hunts and eats almost any smaller fish that they can get their jaws around. They have just absolutely vicious teeth that project clearly and brutally out of their skulls like piranha, except they have larger, longer, more powerful bodies. Jeremy Wade's show, River Monsters, called them demon fish, referencing their role in the African folklore, which tells of an evil spirit that enters the Goliath tigerfish and makes it attack people in the water. Crawling out of the lakes and the rivers of the Congo are numerous amphibians. The Congo Basin is rich in amphibians, as the steamy tropical climate is absolutely perfect for them. The Amatola toad is found in the freshwater rivers and lakes scattered around the course of the Congo, as is the tiny brown-green arum reed frog, and the similarly tiny African dwarf frog. In contrast, the African painted frog, Calixolius pictus, lives on the bark of trees, off the ground and out of the water, specifically trees in higher altitude areas, like along the edges of mountains, or on top of highland plateaus. The frogs are often quite comfortable living on the cooler, shade-tolerant trees, like those in the clades Julbernardia and Cyanometra. Other trees are more comfortable in the upper canopy, with more exposure to the sun. These include genuses like Kaya, Albizia, and Enandrophragma, as well as other kinds of trees like the Shrubera alata, with its little white and pink flowers, the apple leaf rain tree Phalaenoptera violacea, and the Cape fig, Ficus suur. These trees are all shaped by their tropical environment. Their bark is typically smooth and relatively thin and papery or fibrous. This keeps out fungus and discourages epiphytes from weighing down the tree's branches. They tend to grow shallow root systems to feed optimally in the shallow soil. The soil in the Congo never gets too thick, because there's so much stuff growing here that nutrients tend to get absorbed really quickly. But because there's so much stuff living here, there's also a lot of death, and the activity of scavengers and bacteria and fungus, in addition to just the general heat and humidity, it all leads to rapid decomposition and fertilization of the soil. An interesting tidbit of jungle ecology is that miles and miles of dense trees will tend to block the wind or slow it down, and this means that plants deep in the jungle can't really use the wind to help disperse their pollen or their seeds. The wind just isn't there. So in its place, other symbiotic relationships had to emerge for the plants to spread their seeds, to replace the lack of wind. Mutualist relationships with insects help pollinate flowers, and small mammals and birds help move small seeds. But the Congo has plants that produce huge, dense seeds, which are way too heavy and way too hard for most animals to use or break open and eat. These larger seeds caught the interest of larger animals. Just a few examples to consider. Various jungle rodents help disperse seeds from the Carapa grandiflora. The gorillas help disperse cola nuts. And both gorillas and elephants will disperse the giant seeds of the maobi tree, Balonella toxisperma. The largest tropical forests in the Congo are the Congolese rainforests in the north. These are massive, ancient, nigh impenetrable jungles, littered with crocodile-filled swamps and tree canopies that are crawling with primates. Tropical birds of all kinds live in these habitats as well. And when I say all kinds, I really mean it. The amount of bird biodiversity in the Congo will absolutely blow your mind. It's one of the most bird-rich places in the world. There are birds like the storm petrels, like the Oceanites oceanicus, and gannets like the Morus capensis, which fly around and hunt near the coasts. The freshwater lakes and rivers are prime hunting grounds for grebes like Podiceps cristatus, the osprey species Pandion haliatus, and the swimming darters like the Anhinga melanogaster. Both the grebes and the darters are swimming birds, more graceful floating on and swimming in the water than they are walking on land. There are dozens of species of predatory raptors, predatory birds, like falcons and caracaras, hawks and eagles. There are dozens of species of cranes, crakes, cuckoos, kukels, doves, plovers, pigeons, lapwings, larks, hornbills, snipes, sandpipers, skimmers, spinetails, swifts, warblers, and woodpeckers, just to name a few. The raw variety and the number of bird species in the Congo, it's bewildering. It's amazing. The Congo is the most bird-dense and biodiverse area in the entirety of Africa, and it's one of the most species-rich areas for birds in the entire world. Perhaps the most amazing and beautiful part of the biodiversity of the Congo is the resident primates. Humans evolved out of Africa, and one of our closest evolutionary cousins lives here and nowhere else, the gorilla. The eastern gorilla lives in the forests and the highlands along the eastern edge of the Congo Basin, and the western gorilla lives in the lowlands along the western edge near the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. The gorillas are incredible creatures, possessing a remarkable intelligence and a terrifying physical strength. Heavy adult males can grow to reach 600 pounds, and most females sit at around 200 to 300 pounds. They live in generally peaceful social groups of up to 30 individuals, with an alpha male, his mating females, and her children. As the children gorilla grow up and mature, they tend to leave their family group to start their own groups. Young females will tend to meet up and join other groups, or they'll join individual males, while young males will tend to form groups with other young males, and being in a group like this allows them to attract a larger number of females and gives them a better chance at setting up their own family groups. The individual gorillas in these groups typically spend their days eating plants and fruits. Other primate inhabitants of the Congo include the chimpanzee, which generally lives north of the Congo River, as well as its cousin, the bonobo, which lives south of the Congo River. It's believed that a little over 1 million years ago, the emergent Congo River cut through the forest landscape, and it split the ancestral Pan population in half, which led to the divergence of chimps and bonobos. The chimps are larger, with more male-dominated societies, while the bonobos are smaller and more graceful, with more female-oriented societies. Their most obvious difference is in their social behavior and their social organization. Where the chimps tend to have an alpha male of sorts, or a group of dominant males within a larger group, the bonobos are much more egalitarian in certain respects and matriarchal in others. Beyond these basic behavioral differences, they're remarkably similar. They look so similar they were, for quite some time, believed to be the same species. They both live in large communities. They both eat fruit predominantly, as well as honey, insects, and occasionally bark. Chimpanzees, however, are known during times of protein stress to eat other primates, and when social conflict is involved, they've even been known to cannibalize other chimps. The bonobos simply don't display this intraspecies violence. There's a recently discovered primate living in the North Congo, which seems to be a blend of chimp and gorilla. They're a species of massive chimpanzees, which nest on the ground and behave more like gorillas than like chimps. They're called the Beely apes, and they're known by the indigenous people of the area as lion killers, because they're strong enough and vicious enough and brave enough to go out on the land and fight and kill a lion on flat ground, where they then drag the body away to be consumed. Other primates in the Congo are on the exact opposite end of the spectrum from these massive Beely apes. I'm talking about like little bush babies with their freakishly huge eyes that see really well in the dark. Or the mantled guereza with its weird cape of long white hair and the fluffy tufts of black hair that crown its head. There's also the yellow baboon with its sand-colored hair. There's the blue monkey, the dryas monkey, the vervet monkey, the tantalus monkey, the patis monkey, and the red-tailed monkey, among many dozens of other smaller primates. Now, primates are really just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the mammals that live in the Congo, because the mammals that live here include many dozens of species of mice, rats, squirrels, and shrews, and perhaps twice as many bats as any one type of rodent. Anteaters trawl through the vegetation on the forest floor, digging around for ants and other insects to eat. Hyraxes, with their little fuzzy bodies and their happy faces, will climb around over rocks and under snaggling tree roots looking for little plants to eat. In the forests, the African forest elephants wade through swamps and crawl through underbrush to collect food, as they eat a tremendous amount of plants and fruit every day to maintain their body mass. They tend to be smaller than their savanna-dwelling bush elephant cousins. They live in more confined spaces. They have smaller ears, and they have longer tusks that are oriented more narrowly and downward, so as to help them shove underbrush and foliage out of their way. In the more open areas of the Congo, like the great savannas and open canopy forests, larger mammals can spread their legs. Grazing ungulate mammals include the elegant golden-brown puku, the dark gray-black sable antelope, and the sandy-brown congoni. There are also water buffalo, kudu, elands, duikers, zebra, and several other species of antelope. All of these ungulate herbivores travel across the savannas and forests of the Congo in massive herds, grazing and drinking at watering holes and rivers. They're hunted by all manner of predatory African cats, like the charismatic cheetah, the lion, and the leopard. These large cat predators tend to hunt in small groups or bands, as do other predators like hyenas, ganets, and wild dogs. The key takeaway here is that the Congo is a massively deep and complex series of jungles, forests, savannas, and floodplains. It's packed with enough vegetation and animal life to make it one of the most biodense, biodiverse places on the planet. Its ecological importance has reverberating influence worldwide, most fundamentally as a powerful shield against climate change, as one of the world's largest carbon sinks. Because of its unparalleled ecological and biological qualities, the forests and rivers of the Congo Basin are vitally integral to the world's biosphere. This importance has fortunately not gone unrecognized by the world's governments and political powers, as groups and various state actors, from Congolese environmentalist groups to African governments to the World Bank, have established numerous initiatives and resource management efforts to help protect and preserve the rainforests of the Congo Basin, so that the world can continue to enjoy this beautiful, invaluable, irreplaceable biological resource for untold generations to come.